Alright. What's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Today, I'm taking a look at XLM, Stellar Lumen, against US dollar Tether on the Binance chart. We're going to be taking a look at the technical aspects of the price action moving forward. We're going to be assessing some key levels. I'm going to be determining the direction of this breakout, where I think prices will go in the short term. Jumping right into it. To recap this relative price action here, we have an aggressive break upward from a significant resistance back at 8 cents in mid-end of November in 2020. After shooting up through it, we pump, consolidate downward and sideways over the course of about a month, like over a month, with a 51.5% swing low from the swing high top of the pump relative to this consolidation. After that consolidation, we pump yet again, fly all the way past the significant resistance levels, take a 48% pullback, swing low from the relative swing high to this pump regarding this consolidation here. This reaccumulation did not last as long, only less than a month, roughly, before we, about a month before we broke significant resistance again. After this most recent price action, we have had a 48% pullback, and we are still within over a month of consolidation. Now, technical analysis, of course, can only get you so far. I mean, because it's done it before, it's going to do it again. Can only hold true for so long, in my opinion. Mathematically, technical analysis is very, very key in determining certain price moves and price action, and I find to be a very useful tactic in determining key levels and where to place entries and exits. But you need to combine fundamental aspects of price action as well in order to truly get a more ideal entry or exit point. Now, so far, we seem to be failing to hold this 38-cent support level, which was very significant after breaking upward from it, skyrocketing all the way to 60 cents. We broke downward to 31 cents, but we were eventually bought back up to above this 38-cent level. We consolidated sideways above it for a couple weeks here, a month-ish, and we are now looking to be breaking under. Buy pressure is still very prevalent in this range, above 30 cents to 36 cents kind of thing. When we turn on EngineeringRobo, we get a new perspective. We have the buy for moon for this pump here. Significant pullback and sideways. Buy for and moon stayed in play, so you could expect support to be found around this kind of range. We pumped back up, bounced off of this resistance trend line that these pumps have interacted with. This is now the third time interacting with this trend line. Sell for, hell. We seem to hold support for quite some time, but now that we are breaking below, a new perspective can come into play. I personally believe, while I am bullish in the long term for Stellar, I personally believe we will have some more interactions with the 30 to 38 cent range. There's very significant price action above 26 cents to 31 cents. But with this wick that broke the 38-cent support line that came all the way down to 31 cents, I believe is where we should hopefully find support again. Personally, I suspect perhaps a retest of 38 cents to eventually continue downward, interacting with 30 cents, 31 cents, that kind of thing, before eventually furthering the uptrend. Of course, if we cannot hold that level, we will probably most likely come down to the 24-cent level. 25 cents is a nice psychological round level where there's a lot of buy pressure. Some Fibonacci levels I'd like to consider are between the 25-cent and 38-cent range. I believe this to be a very significant zone that we will trade in. I suspect there to be significant enough buy pressure around 32 cents for us to interact with this level for a few days. I do not suspect us to fly directly downward through it, but you got to be ready for anything. But I see this as a very significant range that price will interact with in the very short term, in the very near future. But ultimately, I am bullish on Stellar and the uptrend. A $1 Stellar is not very far away, not very far-fetched at all. When we take a look at Stellar against Bitcoin, we see as well that we have fallen through this support line, what was support for quite some time. We have fallen through it, and we appear to be retesting below it, seemingly solidifying it as resistance. We turn on EngineeringRobo. We have a sell for, and this green line is a 200 period moving average. In this case, it is 200-day moving average. All these closes below it and retest under it is slightly bearish, in my opinion. I suspect that downward break and sideways to occur for quite some time before we can, for not quite some time, but for some time, a short amount of time before we can start gaining against Bitcoin again, as Bitcoin seems to be going through some downward movements after being rejected from 60K. EngineeringRobo has support and resistance indicators as well. When we take a look at that, we see that we are finding support along a different significant key level here, the 693 Satoshi level. We seem to be interacting with a lot between the 753 and 693. This seems to be a significant range that we are interacting with. If we cannot hold this range, I do believe we could very well fall all the way down to the 408 Satoshi level. But fundamentally, I do believe Stellar to be in an uptrend, and there is enough buy pressure to keep it sideways enough before we can kind of take off again and further the uptrend. When we consider EngineeringRobo's fear and FOMO zones, we are still well in accumulation. In fact, we're back into accumulation. We came up out of it briefly in February of this year, and a little bit in January, end of January. But we are now back in accumulation. This is an ideal time to be buying Stellar, to be holding in the long term. In my opinion, we are still 478%, 470% away from the FOMO zone against prices relative to Bitcoin. If we consider the fear and FOMO zone on XLM's price against USDT, we have this brief interaction with the FOMO zone. We came up into it above 50 cents, 49, 50 cents, came all the way up to 60, interacted with the FOMO zone, had that third rejection off of this resistance trend line here. We struggled to hold the 50-cent psychological level, fell right through it, broke the 38-cent support. Sell for hell came into play, but the buy pressure was heavy enough to keep it sideways. At the moment, we seem to be breaking downward, like I've been saying. But the more sideways we go, the higher this FOMO zone will get to. We enter the FOMO zone above 48 cents for the first time since we've been sideways. The bottom of the FOMO zone is now 57 cents, giving us more room up top to swing back up and interact with the 60-cent level again. In a perfect world, if I could predict the future, if I could move the market the way I want it to go, I would love a retest of 38 cents, a break downward to the 30 cents kind of range into the, high 20s kind of range, and that to be the dip aggressive enough for us to pump right back up. This would be the ideal sort of price action for me personally, but of course the market does what it wants, listens to no one, and cares about how it doesn't care about how anyone feels, does what it wants. Now, a lot of the price action today in the very short term is gonna be heavily reliant on Bitcoin's price. So if you look at Bitcoin against US dollar tether on the Binance chart, we see, wow, a sell 4 closing and printing on the daily chart. We had this super buy foreign moon as we were pumping out of the 40K range, but getting rejected off that 60K is quite significant. And we now have a sell 4 closing on the daily chart. The last time a sell 4 closed on the daily, we had a couple weeks of sideways and kind of downward movements. I believe a key level for Bitcoin to find a bottom is the high 40K range, in my opinion. I personally, perhaps we could see a aggressive wick up into the 55, 56K range, but I do not suspect that to last longer than the day, and I suspect interaction with the high 40Ks to maybe even the mid 40Ks in worst case. If we cannot hold there, then a new perspective will have to come into play. But with Bitcoin in a bit of a downtrend right now, and over the past kind of few days, the rest of the crypto market is heavily reliant on what Bitcoin plans to do. We have not yet interacted with the FOMO zone. FOMO zone is around 72,000 per Bitcoin. I believe once we're able to kind of break the relative all-time highs and get into the 70K range is when I believe the real FOMO will kick in, and we can see that six-figure Bitcoin sooner than you might expect. But March has typically been bearish for Bitcoin, so I would not be surprised if we close this monthly candle in the red. But for us to close this monthly candle in the red, we would have to close under 45K, which is very significant and would definitely influence the short-term trajectory of Bitcoin. But in such an aggressive bull run and in such an aggressive bull market, these dips don't tend to last very long. They're bought up very quickly, and in the long term, over the course of the next few years, Bitcoin is for sure going to be flying through six figures. Perhaps 7 within the next decade. Now, watch closely for EngineeringRobo's buy and sell signals. Look out for the breakout of this pattern here. We seem to be interacting with these consecutive lower highs. We will have printed a lower low if we kind of break into the 30-cent range, but I believe we should find support along 30 cents. If not, then new analysis is required. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Thank you for tuning in. Let's try EngineeringRobo, free, link in the description, and tune in for the next one.